Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Keeping It Real Estate with Gavin, and I'm joined by the lovely Nici. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, do you see this crystal ball in front of me, Nici?
Yeah.
Kind of, figuratively.
Shake it up. Yeah.
Shake it. Magic 8 ball, whatever you want to call it. What I'm going to talk about today is my 2026 forecast.
Okay.
Because everybody loves to talk about real estate, and they all have their opinions or forecasts or predictions of what might happen. And I am going to do the same here today, and it'll be fun to kind of look a year from now and see if I had anything on target.
Ooh, I'm going to have to make a note of this and mark this on the calendar so we can pull this up.
But what I'm doing and how I'm able to do that, it's not like I'm a magician or I'm clairvoyant. I'm looking at and basing this on our years of market evaluations and updates.
Okay.
I'm basing it on my MLS data and research and trend indicators, and I'm looking back as far as 2024 and 2025 and some more on the ground market behavior I'm seeing right now. And that's how I'm coming up with my forecast. No, I don't have my wizard hat on. No, there's not some magical television in front of me right now. I'm actually looking at data and making predictions based on that data.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay, so there's a couple things that I'm seeing. So number one, my prediction in 2026 for home prices. I believe, based on the data, that they're going to be stable to moderately up.
Okay.
Not explosive. And if you saw me on social media recently, I said, not explosive like Josh Allen in the end zone. They're going to be steady Eddie, but I do think they're going to be stable and moderately up. It doesn't mean that these things aren't going to fluctuate in a case-by-case scenario. And why I'm coming to that conclusion is what we saw in the last several years is that the median single-family price rose around 8% from 2024 to 2025. And so appreciation held despite fewer sales and higher rates.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying I think it's going to be stable, moderately up, maybe 2 to 5% increase. Yeah. Not really sure because of what we saw in the last few years. So, where you're going to see the strongest appreciation of homes in our area, and again, we're talking about the GLOW region, not talking about nationwide. The strongest appreciation of homes will be in the well-maintained homes, the move-in ready properties, and also the affordable price band that we've talked about on this program, the $150,000 to maybe $250,000, $275,000 homes. That's where I think we're going to see the strongest appreciation of homes in the GLOW region. Where I think you'll see flat pricing, where they're going to kind of sit there or maybe even dip down, is in the overpriced listings. You've heard me warn people about overpricing listings. And homes that need major updates.
Okay.
And not just cosmetic updates, but really need serious repairs or structural things. So I believe in 2026, based on my theme here of home prices, that this will be a normalization year, not a correction year. You're not going to see a big major swing back to where people want prices to be really low. I don't predict that that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see some normalization in that 2 to 5% increase or stabilization of home prices in the GLOW region.
Now, with that price going, either up or down, would you say that has a lot to do also, I guess, with the inventory that will become available? Or?
Absolutely. And so and we will talk a little bit about inventory, I think it's still going to be tight. Okay. It'll improve, but absolutely. Again, it's supply and demand. Mm-hmm. If we don't have a lot of homes and there's no magic wand, back to my magic tricks over here, I don't have a magic wand to create a bunch of inventory. No agent does. No one does. So in lieu of that, we're still going to work with more or less the inventory we have. Maybe some sellers are going to come off the bench a bit because interest rates have come down, but we're still going to have tight inventory. So that's why I think home price is going to be stabilized, up a little bit moderately. And again, where are we going to see that appreciation? Well-maintained homes, move-in ready homes, and that affordable price band of $150,000 to $275,000, that very popular area where people are qualified. Okay. Let's talk about GLOW region 2026 days on the market. What I forecast or predict. I think they're going to be slightly longer and stabilizing. What we saw days on the market in 2025, they did increase modestly. It wasn't crazy. At one point, we were like 25 to 30 days on the market.
Yeah.
In 2025, then we were 30 to 35 days on the market.
And we kind of ended closer to 40.
You got it. So, that increased. So looking at the data, again, I'm not a magician. That's where I think those days are going to be a little longer. And I think buyers have become more payment conscious. And they're not absent to that knowledge of what it's going to take. So they're taking their time to really get numbers and work with getting second opinions on lenders and really understanding that. So I think prices are going to be stabilized, but days on the market, it might take a little bit longer for homes to sell because the buyers are going to do their due diligence. And we saw that already in 2025.
Yeah.
So my forecast, average days on the market, hear me out because I'm kind of building in for those people that are going to list too high still. I think it won't be surprised if we see days on the market around 45 days, maybe up to 60, depending on the property.
Wow.
Again, higher end properties take longer to sell in general normally.
It's so funny because when we first started this show, we started so low, right?
Yeah.
So like now that you're like, oh no, we're going back to normalize. And I'm over here going, wow.
Yeah.
But I guess having been in the industry that when we joined up,
Yes.
I started with
We're
you
like,
at
wow,
such
things
a
are flying off the shelf and all that.
Yes.
And again, there's a seasonality to that, as we know, and we've learned on the show. And I'm not saying it's going to be a full 60, but don't be surprised because for those really unique properties that are higher end or they're really unique, like with a lot of acreage, they're like a niche listing that requires a very specific buyer, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And again, remember, back in the day, it took 6 months to a year to sell a home.
That's true.
Okay, so this is still aggressive. I just think it's going to take a little bit longer than we've experienced in years past.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. That's my forecast. But the homes that are priced right are still going to move quickly. Don't misunderstand me to say that, well, she said it's going to take 45 days and that one sold in a week. You're still going to have those. It's just the average days on the market is
That's
what
true.
I'm saying, okay? I think you're still going to see those people that are going to test the market. In other words, price it high to see what they can get. And I think those listings are going to sit. And that's going to contribute to these higher average days on the market. Again, you've heard me say over and over again, strategy beats speed in 2026. That's my opinion.
And I like that. I like that.
That's what I'm thinking. So let's move on to my next point in predictions in 2026 in the Glow region. Let's talk inventory.
Okay.
I talked about it a few minutes ago. I'm going to talk about it again. It's still going to be tight, but I think it's going to improve slowly because what we saw in 2025 is new listings dropped significantly. And many homeowners were locked into that low rate mortgage, were nowhere to go. It's kind of bumper cars. How am I going to trade up my 3% mortgage rate for a 6 or 7? But now we've seen that interest rate has gone down. It's the lowest it's been in like 2 years. It's right below 6%, and this is going to change every day, folks. But because of that, in 2026, my forecast is that the inventory is going to remain below the pre-2020 norms. I think it will slightly increase if listings, if the rates ease modestly, which they are. So somebody thinks, well, I didn't want to go from a 3% interest rate in my current home to a 7, but maybe I can do a 5.75. Maybe that feels better, right? So if the rates ease modestly, we might see more inventory. If life events force moves, and they always do, downsizing, death, diapers, divorce, estates, job changes, relocation, things that we can't control but happen, that's always going to be an indicator of why homes become for sale. That might happen. I don't think we're going to have a flood of homes, okay? I think low supply continues to support the prices, and that's why I'm saying, back to where I started with prices, they're going to be stable to moderate up because I think with that tight inventory, people want a home, supply and demand. We're not going to have a flood of homes. And so those prices are going to hold. So I have this conversation every day with people.
You know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till you're done. I'm making little notes for the questions I have, but I'm going to wait till you're done because you might actually answer my question. So I'm going to
no problem. I always try to answer your question. So that's how I feel about inventory. Inventory is still going to be our issue here, no matter what's going on with interest rates, et cetera. I think we're going to see some things freed up for the reasons I've mentioned, but I don't expect a flood of homes. They're going to make sure that our prices go real low. That's wishful thinking. It's not that it can't happen. I don't foresee it happening based on the data. My next prediction in 2026 in the Glow region, we talked about it a little bit, interest rates. I feel that they will be less volatile. They'll still be the deciding factor. And why I think that is because what we saw in 2024 and 2025, rates cooled buyer urgency, but didn't stop activity. So people were still buying out of necessity, and they normalized that 6 and 7% interest rate. Of course, we want it to be lower for affordability. But we also saw, as a result, financing diversified. So remember, there was a time where you had to be cash or conventional, or it was laughable. Now we're seeing a more mix of loan options for buyers. We've seen more FHA, VA, USDA deals close. We've seen seller concessions come back into the conversation. And so I think interest rates are going to be part of that. And so my forecast for interest rates in 2026, rates are likely to range, but not spike. I think we're going to see some fluctuation. And I don't think you're going to see a 3% interest rate anytime soon. Not in 2026. I'm not a financial expert, but I don't see that.
There you go. You answered my question. I
just don't see
big
it.
One.
I just don't see it. Okay. But I think that the buyers are going to adapt. You've learned to, and you're going to continue to adapt through, creative solutions when you're working with your with your lender, with your loan originator. Maybe you have an opportunity for a rate buy down. Maybe you are putting seller concessions into your offer. You've got adjustable rate mortgages and other financing types out there that you should speak about with your lender to see what might be a good fit for you. Your payment math remains king. In other words, you've heard me say over and over on this program, know your monthly note. Understand what goes into that. All of your expenses, including your insurance, your taxes, your utilities. Affordability matters more than the headline. So you've got to really understand what that monthly note means to you, interest rate or not. Because a lot of times, folks, when I see the interest rate goes down, sellers think this is their opportunity to make the price go back up.
And you're right. You are right.
Yeah. So be careful. So again, a lot of times, a lot of people say, well, this is the house. I know it is, but I don't want to buy it at that rate when it was at 6 and 7%. Long term, if you had purchased that home at the 6 and 7% interest rate, probably your payment was more affordable over time and the life of the loan than when you waited.
Yeah.
And now the price went higher. Mm-hmm. So it's 6 1/2 and dozen. Do you want a moderately priced home at a higher interest rate?
Yeah.
Or do you want a sky high house at a lower interest rate? It's going to even out. And actually, if you do the math side by side with your loan originator and do some calculations, you're going to find that you're probably better off with that average price and average interest rate.
Yeah.
Okay, for stability purposes. And that makes sense. I'm happy to talk that through with anyone. The next thing I'm seeing for 2026 for my forecast in the Globe region based on the data and my research is buyer behavior. Let's talk about that a little bit in 2026 and what I think is going to happen. Based on what we've seen in previous years here in the Globe region, I think you're going to have smaller pools, but stronger intent. So less people buying, but more serious buyers. Okay? Maybe not all those looky-loos. Okay? So my 2026 profile in the Glow region, I think this is what we're going to see. Fewer casual lookers. Okay? More serious pre-approved buyers that you've listened to me and you've worked with me or your agent to sit down and do your homework and get ready and you're locked in. Okay? And you know what you're going to do and you're ready to execute. I think you're going to find buyers that are value-focused. They are inspection aware. In other words, home inspections are going to be back. I think they're going to insist upon that. Depends on your competition, of course, on any given property. But I think you're going to see that normalcy return to the home inspection as part of the offer. I think it's also going to be payment driven. I think buyers are going to look at homes. They're going to do their due diligence. But at the end of the day, they're going to go back to their math and their lender and say, what's my payment going to be? Does this make sense? And what I think this is going to mean for the market in 2026, based on this buyer behavior, is that we're going to have fewer bidding wars. Okay? It doesn't mean they're going to go away, but I think we'll have fewer of them. We'll have cleaner negotiations, cleaner offers, and deals that make sense that actually close. Well, that's what we were seeing last year, that this lagging of closings where we were closing things pretty quickly over the last few years in 60 days or so. I'm seeing transactions that are still trying to tug over the finish line because things were messy. So I think we have fewer bidding wars, cleaner negotiations and deals that actually make sense and actually close. And I think the buyers that are showing up are real buyers. And that's good for sellers.
Yes.
Really good for sellers. You don't want to be, You don't want that emotional roller coaster of a deal that we saw in 2025. We want buyers that are real and realistic. And I think that's what we're going to see. That's what I hope.
think it makes your life as an agent easier too, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always challenges, and we always have to be creative, and we're always dealing with the cards that are dealt to us.
Yeah.
And we always must work on behalf in the best interest of our client, no matter what side of that transaction we're on. But I think it becomes clear that buyers have to do their job, and so do sellers.
As Gavin would always say, buyers have to think like sellers and sellers have to think like the buyers.
Always.
I say that all the time
Thank
now.
you.
It's so funny
Thank
how
you.
much that has stuck in my brain.
Thank you. If that's one major takeaway that everybody in the Glow region can hear from me, please hear that. And if you don't know what that means, that's what I'm here for. Call me. But my next thing in my forecast for 2026 in the Glow region is let's talk a little about those multifamily in the investor market, because
Yes.
they kind of came back in 2025. And I think it's selective but still alive. And what we saw in the last couple of years, and certainly in 2025, is that there were fewer transactions, okay, because there wasn't a lot of inventory of those those properties. There aren't a lot to begin with. But when they were available and they were in great condition, they flew off the shelf because buyers felt like, okay, maybe especially as a first-time home buyer or as a downsizer, maybe I do buy that multifamily home or duplex or double as a owner occupant. I live in one side, the other side I rent out, and that helps me with my affordability. We saw a lot bit about that. I think in 2025, when it came to the investor market and multifamily properties, we saw stable pricing, but longer decision cycles. So they sat there a little bit more than the normal single-family home that was a hot property.
But they were moving.
Yeah. Because I think it was a viable option for people.
Yeah.
And fortunately, sellers were at that point where they're like, yeah, I'm ready to sell this. It's done me well, but now I'm ready to part with it. So based on that, in 2026, my forecast is that investors will focus on cash flow. The money has to make sense for them. They're going to look at capitalization rate. They're going to look at what the money they have to put into a property, what it's going to yield. Rents are still high. Does it make sense for them to purchase where they're going to purchase and really make a profit or a long-term investment? I think you're going to see the smaller 2 to 4 unit properties move. I'm not talking about those big commercial properties with 5 units and higher. I'm talking about the smaller, like duplexes, triples, and things like that. I think you're going to see local management advantages. So it's the mom and pops are going to buy out there and manage it locally and maybe be an owner occupant.
Yeah.
I'm not really talking about, not that we're not going to see it and not that we haven't, but people coming from outside of the area, Buffalo and Rochester, and investing here and managing a property. You're still going to see that, but you're not going to see like big corporations doing that. It's still local management and mom and pop properties that are happening here.
Quick question. I just thought about this. A friend of mine had bought a property that the downstairs was a storefront and the upstairs there was 2 apartments, but it was all attached to one building. What would that be considered? Commercial?
That's a commercial property.
It would be, even with the apartments that are still.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, because you've got, and it depends on zoning too, and depends on location, but that would be a commercial property.
Okay.
With some residential units for income. So that's
Yeah.
a great property. Those are some of those mixed use properties are some of my favorite.
Yeah.
I think that's great. So congratulations to your friend. But back to, what I'm going to see with the investor front and multifamilies. It's the smart money and the smart investing tactics of these investors that's going to stay active. It's people aren't going to put themselves out on a limb anymore. It's got to make sense. And that's why a lot of times people will say, well, how come the multifamily homes are always priced differently than the single family? There's a lot of reasons behind that, but mostly because they're usually investment properties.
Yes.
And so the money's got to make sense, that capitalization rate, the income versus what their payout is. So that's what I'm going to see. I'm going to predict we see in 2026.
Makes sense.
Next, let's talk about in 2026 in the Glow region, land, farms, real properties, something that's a real hallmark of our area. And what we have seen steadily is that they are steady. They're lifestyle-driven demand. We saw in 2024 to 2025, there was strong appreciation of those properties, okay? They were cash-dominant purchases, okay? There were longer days on the market, but consistent interest. It just, again, those properties sometimes take longer to push. So my forecast for 2026 in regards to those unique properties, there's still a continued demand for them. There's still a continued demand for small acreage. And what I mean by that is the farm home that has a nice outbuilding and it's maybe 10 to 20 acres, Hobby farms, those might be a little up to 100 acres. Recreational and seasonal properties. Maybe this is somebody's winter home, believe it or not. I've sold those to people that they want their little upstate New York or Western New York farm, and they're coming from the city or out of state. I think pricing will probably stabilize on these properties, but it will remain supported in that the inventory will still be low and the demand will still be there. So the prices will be there. So, buyers, I think, have to be patient and intentional. Same preparation goes into effect there. And the lifestyle demand isn't going away in the Glow region. People love us for that. You've got access to city and metro communities and cosmopolitan lifestyle, but you've got a rural aspect and all within a stone's throw and 30-minute radius.
I agree 100% with that. I was going to mention that earlier.
Yep. Let's get into commercial real estate real quick in 2026 in the Glow region. My whole theme here is cautious optimism. The 2026 outlook, I think you're going to see, just like we talked about, and you talked about your friend, Nici, owner-occupied commercial interest is going to be the strongest. Maybe you've got that mixed-use property. Maybe they've bought the business downstairs. They're going to rent out the apartments, things like that. You're going to see interest there. Small local users are going to drive demand. It's obvious in our area that we've got a handful of investors locally who kind of really are the investors and moving and shaking with commercial properties around here. It's not that people aren't coming from the outside, but I think you're going to see that. I'm seeing it already with my commercial listings this year.
Are you?
I'm getting the phone calls from the people that are kind of the local characters that have questions, and they're kind of the big players. Doesn't mean it's not going to draw outside interest either. I think the investors, that being said, are going to remain conservative. Pricing is going to hold where the fundamentals are strong. They're going to look at all the data. What's the income based on that? What's the cap rate? What are the financing options? Is the seller going to hold? So deals are still going to happen. They're just going to be smarter, maybe slower.
Okay.
So that's my shtick on commercial real estate in the Glow region 2026. But as a whole, with this crystal ball here in front of me, what I think the bottom line is for 2026 and what it looks like in the real estate market for the Glow region, I think it's balanced, not broken. Okay. People love drama and they love those negative headlines, but yes, I'm saying it's balanced, not broken. Let's keep it real here. I think you're going to see stable prices with modest growth. I think you're going to see fewer but well-qualified buyers and prepared buyers. Lower inventory is going to continue to protect the home values and the home prices.
I like that.
Do not ignore that. I hear a lot of people say, "Well, I can get the house over here in Webster, and it's less expensive than here." When we have low inventory in this area, it's still going to support those higher prices. It just is. So maybe you need to expand your home search of where you want to be. But when it comes to the Glow region, strategy, pricing, and preparation matter more than ever. So 2026 isn't about timing the market; it's about understanding it. Okay. Homes are priced right and prepared well will sell. Buyers who do the math and stay flexible will find opportunity. And the Glow region continues to be one of the most resilient, affordable markets in Western New York. Resilient like the Buffalo Bills.
I love that. I do. That was perfect. I'm so glad you threw that little in there.
So I'm Gavin Townsend with Hunt Real Estate here in Batavia. If you have questions from the buy side, the sell side, the market, give me a buzz at 585-344-1321. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to take your questions and set up a complimentary buyer or seller consultation. Don't hesitate to reach out. Follow me on social media. Until next time, we're keeping it real estate here on WBTA. Thanks for joining me, Nici, and let's see if my 2026 predictions hold true for a year from now.
All right. I'm going to mark it. Get it? No
Got
pun
it.
intended.
Mark it.
I love it. All right.
Love it.
Well, we will definitely be back next week. And as always, thank you for joining us here on WBTA's Keeping It Real Estate.